possible. But what I should do is I should just kill the Jarvan. He has no EQ. I can use everything on him. We can get a guaranteed kill. We can get the tower. This is a extremely high percentage, low risk, guaranteed A+ play. And because I don't, and I try to go for the greed, I thought we could maybe kill the Jarvan and the Zed. I miss my E. Jarvan now survives, and now we're up shit creek. So whenever you guys are in a skirmish, it's like, oh, can I maybe eke out 2 kills or just guarantee the 1 kill? More often than not, over a large sample size of games, again, as a general rule of thumb, take the 1 guaranteed kill, because you're going to be a lot better off. Now, yes, League as a game of specifics is always going to come into a lot of, specifics really matter, right? That is definitely a thing. But as a general rule of thumb, it's something that has served me well, and has been to take the guaranteed kill. And I got punished for it, and this is another lesson learned. Now, number 2, one decision. Look at how one decision changes the entire game. One decision where I didn't go for the kill onto the Jarvan. Jarvan escapes, now we get locked in and we get isolated and we die here. Changes the entire trajectory of the game. And I talk a lot about how League is a game of details, and League is this game where it's incredibly brutal. I don't think people really understand this. Like, I think we hear it, and you hear it as like an offhand comment, like, oh, yep, I made that mistake. And like, we forget how significant even 1 or 2 decisions can be in a game. You lose focus for 1 deployment, you mess up a lane assignment, you mess up a skirmish, you rush your ability here. 1 decision can completely put your game on a different path. And I think that this really, for me, I think it's something that it's taken me years to really internalize, and I used to get really bothered by it, but it's almost freeing. It's like, I don't need to overcomplicate the fuck out of my review. Like, I could min-max this game, and we did win this game, but like, at the end of the day, this was a really, really pivotal mistake. 4 of our team died when I could have taken the kill and none of us would have died. 1 decision. And so I guess I like to view it in a positive light, because it just means, okay, I don't need to change everything in my gameplay. Let me highlight the pivotal, like big fish. What are the big 20%ers? What are the big decisions, the big mistakes that I made that had a gigantic flow-on effect for the rest of this game? And until we've identified these, until you've...
Not giving the isolated Qs much credence, not much focus. But then you said, Curtis, like, actually focus on landing the isolated Qs. It makes a big difference, especially when you are like just really hitting your Qs. And I had a blasé mentality towards it at the start, and then when I switched that mindset, I got to land the isolated Qs. Boom, my solo kills just went up massively.
Yeah, holding the Q, holding abilities. That's something
running
that
at people getting the passive.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting those 3 auto attacks before you even throw your first Q is just such a simple way to proc the Rylai's before you get the Q off. And yeah, just like that's like the jungler's mentality. Me and Nathan always talked about that back in the old school jungle guys we did, just holding abilities and the power of overwhelming people's mental stacks. Like Mordekaiser is so good at doing that.
When you get ulted by Mordekaiser, what's your first thought? Dodge. I gotta dodge the Q, you gotta dodge, and they're just juking themselves.
Imagine just walk forward.
And then you push them into the corner, and then just...
Well, and what you do is you hold E to the end, so that you run into them, and then they're trying to escape, and they fight, and then you E, you pull them back in. It's so satisfying.
He's very good at teaching ability usage. He is, because the W as well is not super intuitive. Like, because you can do so many things with it. You can double tap it for healing. That's something that we weren't doing at the start. We had to learn that. Blocking key abilities with the shield. Like saving it till after the realm, so you solo heal someone in the realm without hitting you, then you pop out of the realm, and then you have a shield on you. It's like, oh damn!
Or
like
sometimes not even using your E at all in the realm.
Yeah.
And then using it at the end.
Yeah, saving your E. I've done that a lot. Like, that catches people off guard as well. Like, because people cluster up on you, and then you emerge from the realm, and imagine you've got all the abilities because you just killed the guy with auto attacks. Like, that's realistic. That does happen.
Yep.
Mordekaiser is also one of those champs where you do want to be selfish. Like, this is something I would see as well as like low CS Mordekaisers. But you want to group at fights, right? Because we have to group at neutrals.
That's what the mid game is all about.
Yeah,
it's about you're not about split pushing. You're about shoving and moving and getting to neutrals.
Classic push and moves champion, and he's just so rewarding. Like saying no to fights without ults, saying no to fights without ghosts sometimes as well. Getting strong.
Yes.
Because he is like so perfect in a lot of ways, doesn't he? He's
like the perfect.
I want to go home and play Mordekaiser.
Yeah, he's like the perfect. Like if you, again, you might say why Mordekaiser over any of the other champs. I just think that Mordekaiser simplifies the journey the most, even like more than Urgot, I would say, because I would say with Urgot you're a little bit more like you have like more downtime, like where you can't do as much. Whereas Mordekaiser, I think, is consistently kind of strong throughout the majority of the game. Like
You can always kill people with
you can always do things. You can always trade like level 3,
A bit more intuitive as well. He, at the end of the day, like he's just like a fighting game character, right? He's got a couple of bonky abilities.
Yeah.
Urgot's a bit weird. You know, Urgot's got
Urgot's a bit weird,
like a
bit
toggle,
unique.
a bit weird stuff about him.
So I think like Mordekaiser simplifies the journey the most. I think
Yeah.
Mordekaiser would be my number one recommendation for like Iron, Bronze, Silver. Like I think if you learn the game through Mordekaiser, for those, like you're gonna kill it. You'll absolutely kill it.
Yeah, love it.
Moving on.
Darius was the first top laner that I played to a relatively high rank.
We were initially going to not do Darius. We had Darius, and then we were not going to do him, and then we did him again.
I don't really remember that. Is that what we did?
Yeah.
We bailed. We
Can I
bailed.
start
We
with an
bailed out.
interesting thing about Darius.
Okay.
Darius was the champion for me that had the most stark difference between complete failure to complete success. I did a 180 with Darius. I remember I was shooting my brains out. I hated the champion. I was like, oh my god, I have to play this shit champion. And then it was just a few concepts that tied together. It was just E usage, going deep on E usage.
Yeah.
Just really understanding the limits with the bleed. It is a champ that you just got to know your limits. The most brutal thing. And I saw on the Discord, some people sending their OBGG. They say they got 25 games with Darius, and I've got like a 20% win rate. Dude, I will one up you. I had like a 10% win rate, and I turned it around, and it became probably my second best champ next to Mordekaiser. I was winning again in Master Tier games with Darius. I was playing on my main in like GM lobbies and winning games with it. So Darius for me is that champ where you will inch your ass off, because if you don't know your limits, you will go 0-10. But the game, you know, if it clicks, you understand your limit, you know the matchup, boom, you can go 10-0. Just like that.
You're playing on a knife's edge. I think that's why I love the time. You want to be low HP. That's something that Darius taught me, was that being comfortable with being low, because you have like more kill threat than they do, which is really strange. Like, if you do nothing as Darius and you just kind of sit there and like ping pong waves and play a bit normal, yeah, it's gonna suck. And like, if you all in at the wrong time, yeah, you're gonna die. But it's finding that balance. You know what? I was laughing a bit before because it reminds me of Nathan's Darius journey. And
Wait, what? So walk me through Nathan.
Nathan would always win on the first 3 waves, and then he would try and dive the enemy top laner at level 3.
Oh, yeah.
He would die every single time.
Because what I couldn't wrap my brain around is that I didn't kill them when they should have died, because I would have misexecuted.
Yeah.
Right? So they have to die. You're meant to die.
Like you rush your E or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll not queue on the edge or.
So Darius,
And yeah, you just do not dive on Darius. I needed to drill that in my brain. Stop trying to dive, because he's really bad at diving.
well, it's because our identity for Darius, he's the Punisher.
Yeah.
Right? And what a lot of people do with Darius, and what we were all doing, we're all guilty of this early in our journey, is we were trying to kill the opponent before the opponent made a mistake.
That's exactly
Yes,
right.
that's exactly.
That's why he was so hard for us, because we didn't understand that. We were like, they have to die. It's like, well, they only die if they make a mistake.
Yeah, and the
And they
margin
will.
for error is
They
so high, or low.
Still low, yeah.
Versus Darius, right? Again, for the enemy, it's like the enemy only have to overstep by a tiny, tiny bit, and boom, that's a mistake. And then they're dead. And that's why as well, Darius thrives in like the long lane. I think that's one of the biggest learnings I had on Darius, is like the power of actually getting the wave on your side of the lane, because so you can run them down with ghosts. Like, that's where you get in situations where, I mean, I had a game last week streaming in the Discord where I'm 90 CS at 10 minutes and the enemy Gwen's 20 CS, because once you do get the wave on your side,
It's a top cap champ.
it's a top cap champ. Yeah.
Yeah,
You need to learn how to freeze.
obliterate.
Freezing is where of all the list, Darius can like do flat out hard freezes.
You can do hard freezes, and also you get insanely rewarded for good matchup understanding.
Yeah.
You can win your lane at level 1, like in a pretty replicable way. Like there was matchups, remember, we looked at where you just ghost on them level 1 with W.
Yeah.
You just run them down and kill them. Like there was crazy shit you can do on Darius that you would have like no idea unless you just really got into the matchups. And also I'll say Darius is like an incredibly rewarding champion for learning and developing Master on, but it's one of the most brutal journeys. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I've got a 20% win rate or whatever, own it. That's what it's gonna be like. You're gonna be in the shit. You're gonna be in the mud. But I promise you, it will turn around and you won't look back. You'll be so happy you stuck with it.
Yeah, fun champ.
I think it's fun.
I love it.
played a
I
lot of
love it.
Darius.
I clicked. Really fun champ.
Also, we initially were going to call him like the king of summoner spells. Ghost is so important. You're a different champ with Ghost. The flash doesn't actually matter that much, I find. It's more the Ghost. Would you guys agree?
I think Flash
Both
is
are still useful.
both are pretty good. Like in team fights, specifically the Flash in lane doesn't mean anything, but in the team fights, I think Q Flash or
That's true.
even just engaging with Flashy sometimes
Flash
is nice.
when you have the stacks is so good. You spread the stacks
Oh
everywhere.
yeah, I mean, dude, when you have those team fights on Darius where you stack up 5 lead stacks on someone and then Q Flash
There's actually
multiple
nothing more
people.
satisfying.
Oh my
It's
lord.
the most satisfying feeling in League.
No, you're like the closest you can get to a 1v9 champ.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was getting pentakills when I was playing the Darius guy. Like, if you want to get pentakills, play Darius. Like, he's a pentakill farmer. He's really fun. But yeah, you kind of have to be a bit of a psycho, I reckon, to play Darius. Like, if you're a bit of a slower guy, like playing wave states and stuff like this, yeah, maybe don't play
He's
Darius.
not like the chess, like cerebral
No.
type.
No.
champion.
You need to be willing to. He's like the Yasuo of top in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. You have to be willing to just like bomb some lane phases, find your limits.
You gotta love fighting.
Yeah.
You got to love fighting. That's it. You gotta love fighting, and you
Yeah.
gotta love getting in there. It's gonna get dirty, gonna get messy. That's what it's gonna be like.
Yeah. I will also say that he's very polarizing in terms of his matchups. Like, once you get into the details, like there's some matchups where if you play Darius, like into Gwen, for example, like I said, it's just like, you just obliterate her in the early game, and it's actually quite easy. But you play some matchups where it's a bit more close, like maybe a set or something, and then you do have those matchups where it's like, oh, I'm versing Vayne top, or I'm versing Teemo, like, this is boring. But that's just part of the journey, and I think expectations with Darius as well, based on matchup, was something that, yeah, I had to come to terms with.
100%.
All right, next up is Gwen. Gwen.
So you're a bit of a Gwen. You were a big Gwen player, Charles. You definitely put a lot of work into this guide.
I grind with Gwen.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Gwen, Charles? How do you interpret Gwen?
Yeah, so Gwen, we call her the reactive raid boss. So Gwen is a bit of that raid boss. Like, it at a high level, Gwen is a scaling champion. And I think this was the first true scaling champion that we did in top lane. Like, not so much as like a Kale or a Kassadin, but you do have that factor where if you hit 3 items and you hit level 16, like, you're going to one-shot people. And she is like a raid boss in that sense. But she's also a bit strange. She's one of the hardest champs we have because of her mechanical intensity and because she kind of is a bit of a blank canvas in a lot of ways. Like, she has good reference points, but she's also capable of a lot because you want to scale, but your laning phase isn't that bad. You're still good at punishing last hits and stuff like that. But I would say that Gwen is basically just like a classic damage dealer at the end of the day. She doesn't do a whole lot utility-wise. You need to be very selfish. You need to just have high farm and do a lot of damage. It's hard to really put a pin on like what Gwen teaches you.
Yeah, Gwen is a bit of a.
She's a bit of an AP Renekton that scales in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Gwen really was hard for me because you have this idea that you scale, but there's so much trading power in the early lane if you're good at trading. Like, it rewards. I think actually, I think with the early game, you got to double down on trading. Like, I think the champ has such a high skill cap when it comes to trading. There's so much you can do. And I think that if you love the details of trading and what you love about top is trading, Gwen is a really good choice because you get rewarded for great trading. And you can just mechanically outplay people. It's the mechanics. It's a mechanics max champ. If you can be behind, you can be in a bad situation and just win fights because you land all your R's, you space, use your W to block your ability, use your E to dodge an ability, and then you get the empowered Q, and then like you just win. So I just feel as though Gwen has that, Renekton-esque aspect of there's a lot you can do because of the skill cap of the trading and the complexity there. But I think that you've got that X factor with the 3 items. The one ability with Gwen that I think is one of the most unique abilities in the game is the W. The W is just so goddamn nuanced and so complicated, and it's an ability that scales with game understanding. And if you're a great top laner, you're probably actually going to just be good at Gwen because you understand how to get value out of W. The W for me just completely bamboozled me. And so I think like if you're going to go down the Gwen journey, you need to spend a lot of time with your W, and like I would like focus on my W usage in key fights.
So W usage is like the secret source of that champ.
And that's what Charlie's big criticism of my fighting when he was watching me play is like, I'm just not using the W well. I'm just not. So what you want to do is like Charlie kept saying, you want to sit on the edge. So you want to like go in, you want to use your W, you kind of sit on the edge. They can't hit you. And so there's this balance between you're doing damage, but they can't damage you. So you're like a space creator, but you also need to get on top of them to kill them. So like I couldn't mentally kind of visualize that. And so yeah, that's something that you were quite good at. I think we had the opposite problem where I think you were really good in mid game, and you would just win games getting to mid game. But and you would have a sloppy early game. I would have a great early game, but I couldn't win in mid game, which, you know, that's just the reality of like, people's strengths and weaknesses.
I think I played 50 Gwen games before I started using W to trade. Like, I would just use W for stats.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I was looking some VODs and I see people, playing on the edge of the W, like you were saying, where you can hit them and they can't hit you. And it's like, once that clicks in your brain, it's like, wow, this ability is insane. It's like very, very, very good ability.
And landing R's, that was a big one. You pushed.
Yeah, I thought the R was pretty intuitive from the get-go, but it's again just that holding the ability and just being a bit more. The time between the casts is what a lot of people get caught off guard by. You can wait like I think 6 seconds.
Yeah, that was not intuitive to me. I thought you had to rush it. Like I think the timer was really slow, but it's really long.
Yes.
So you can just sit there and hold it. You press one, hold, go again.
Dodge and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. It's really good.
Exactly.
Auto people to death, dodge, then R them. I would say the two things, if I isolate two things that Gwen teaches you. Number one is really an obvious one, but you just punishing last hits in lane. Because one of the big reference points we have is that when the enemy goes for a last hit, just cue them in the face. And that works for a lot of players. I had Justice, one of our members, he's gone from Iron to, he's mid bronze at the moment, he's a Gwen main. And yeah, he's actually got really good at that. And just classic 3-wave stack every game. Punish them on last hits, it's quite simple. I think that Gwen does have that bit of like a low floor and a high ceiling.
Yeah, I would
because
agree.
she's not very punishing because of her scaling factor. But there is a lot of that nuance.
And
once
you can
get to
just
the higher.
smash. You can just in a team fight just press your R, and even if you're gonna do bulk damage.
I think that's why I was having success in team fights. I was just not overthinking it. Just bash the buttons in a direction.
I will say though, that team fighting was the hardest aspect for me with Gwen. That was what I was chopping at. You and Tim were quite good at it. I couldn't wrap my head around what do I do? Do I front to back? Do I get on the back line? And I think you helped me a lot by saying you just got to flank. You got to get on the back line. But
you want to arrive late. Like I was actually talking about that this morning in the reviews. Is Gwen is not like an engage champion. She actually does not want to be there as the engage happens. That's why I'll get to my second point, which is split pushing. You actually always want to arrive late, whether you're flanking after the fight happens or creating threat, or you're just straight up TPing into a fight once the enemies are past the point of no return. Like
it actually kind of plays like an assassin.
You're a cleanup champ.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Gwen's a really good cleanup.
Again, not what I thought that it actually is. So.
And she's really, really good at it because you have Ghost and you have so much damage that once the enemies have wasted all their spells, you just dash around killing them all. Yep. It's really good. But yeah, Gwen I think is perfect for teaching that like split push, selfish mentality. Just that idea of being so comfortable with your team dying. Like, it's a weird thing. You go from one extreme to another, right? So what a lot of people feel, which I think Nathan might feel a little bit, is if you're in the side lane, a fight happens, the enemy top laner attends it, and your team dies, you feel bad. If I'm playing Gwen, and that happens, and the fight goes poorly, but I get a T2 tower, I feel good. Like, that's what Gwen teaches you. It teaches you to embrace, like, just that gold acquisition mindset, like, just farming towers, and then, you're just going to rock up later in the game on 3 items, just, like, execute.
Yep. 100%.
Would you say that Gwen's the best scaling champ of our list so far?
Yeah, I reckon she is. I think she's the strongest scaling champ. Maybe Garen in some games can do pretty well. And I mean, they all have their strengths. I would say just across the board, yes, Gwen is going to be one of the best 6-item champs in the game. In both the side lane and in the 5v5.
You also said that the Gwen guide you think was the most streamlined guide, Giles.
Yeah, so this was because we launched the product, the program, early in June. And I got to see people play Gwen before making the guide, and I got to like watch the members and see, this is what they're struggling with, this is what they're good at, bad at.
It was structured way better. I feel like the Gwen guide. Yeah.
I mean, just to like say what it basically was, like we just had a very, very big emphasis on showing full laning sequences, showing what a full lane looks like. I think we have like 10 examples, like what a full lane looks like, how to use the abilities, how to approach the waves, how to approach the trading, the matchups, all that stuff, and then just full mid game sequences, like. Because that's sort of the biggest questions that I get every day in Top Lane Academy is like, when do I group and when do I split? It's like, just look, we've got examples of what to do, key factors, saying no.
I think me and Tim also reviewed a shit ton of team fights.
Yeah.
In the guide as well. rather than
They're the three things: laning phase, when to group, when to split, and how to play team.
how to
fights.
play team fights.
Like that's it. Just cut the bullshit. That's how you play Gwen. You know, and I think that's why the guide was so streamlined. I also think that I'm just recalling my Gwen journey now. I would ARAM a lot. Do you remember this, Nathan?
I remember you and Tim were on Discord together. You were laughing. You look at your bot, and Tim was just hysterically laughing at you just being mid in just looking around.
And this
there.
is what Tim didn't. Tim was so good. I feel like at Gwen, like he was.
Yeah, Tim was good.
Mid game. His mid game Gwen. Like he was so smart. He just knew how to get in good locations. Like I feel like your fighting was like if not better than Tim, but he would just be in way better.
Yeah, he would put himself in
locations.
good flanks all the time. Like
yeah.
creating space is something that's pretty unintuitive, but Tim was really good at it. And yeah, just always like that idea of because you are split pushing, you're in the side lane. It's like an organic flank. You know what I mean? Like you're just naturally not on the mid wave. But in my early games of Gwen, yeah, I would always just find myself just staring at the enemy team on mid wave, just like, hey guys, and then Gwen sucks at that. Gwen's not a mage.
No.
Like Gwen can't do anything. She can't engage, and you want the enemies coming into you, right? So. Yeah.
So basically, you're saying that if you're in a situation where you're hovering or ARAMing around mid, you're probably in the wrong
You
position.
probably messed up.
Yeah, if you're like in Pokemon, right, and like your eyes lock with another trainer in the mid lane and they just look at you, like you probably made a mistake. Like you don't want to be getting seen
Gwen
as
is the
Gwen.
most, I think about versing Gwen. Yeah, very low threat when I see Gwen. When I don't see Gwen, there's the scariest champion in the game. Like I'm spam pinging like the fog of like where Gwen could flank me from. Like really good Gwen players.
The only time you want to show is
Terrifying.
if you're hitting a wave or hitting a tower.
That's a great principle.
Yeah, you want to be in the grass in Pokemon, not being a trainer staring at someone.
All right, Curtis. Now the last most recent champion that you've been specializing in going through the ringer with, Set top. Now,
Yeah, I'm like, what's it called? You know, Rocky at like the final rounds. That's me.
That's how we feel you're at.
That's how I feel with. That's how I feel with Set after
Set.
learning him. It's like,
Oh yeah,
absolutely
you're
just
bleeding.
bleeding, I'm
you've got a really
bruised.
swollen eye.
Yeah.
and-
I'm just completely to the. I got pushed to my limit with Set. I think I got. I would say I'm quite a stubborn individual when it comes to things with League, and I got pushed to the extreme. And Set really put me in situations where I had to dig deep about my understanding of the game. And I was talking to Nathan before you got here, Charlie, about how like I feel like I've become a better League of Legends player and top laner through Set. It's really forced me to understand aspects of the game that are so uncomfortable and so unintuitive to me. Set, to really just summarize Set, he's a fighter, he's a stat checker, and he's like Darius 2.0. But the thing with Darius is that you've got way clearer reference points in terms of like what you want to do with waves and kind of what you're looking for in trade. So with Darius, it's like I know what the trade exactly looks like. But with Set, there's so much nuance, and you got to get messy, you got to get dirty. And the trading patterns with the W is so unintuitive. Like the idea that you actively have to take damage to charge up your grit and then W get low and then turn the fight with this huge shield and true damage. It's just like, what the fuck? What is this?
Every single aspect of Set's kit is crazy.
Yeah.
He does 2 autos instead of 1.
Yeah, the double punch.
His Q is the same thing. The W is a shield, but I feel like the shield is a bit of a gaslight. It's more about the damage. The E is the range on it and the way it stuns or doesn't stun is so odd. I mean, you didn't even understand what the E did until very recently.
Yeah.
The ulti is like, you can do so many things with it. You can throw the front line into the back line. You can insect people with it. Like, I'll just be transparent about it. I gave up on Set. I gave up. If Set pushed you to your limits, Set pushed me past my limits. I gave up. This champion, I attempted it, and I just couldn't grasp the identity. And I think that it's weird because we've put the champion in the academy because he does get results. It's consistently wins games in lower ranks. Stats don't lie, exactly right.
Well,
And
we found that that's different though with high elo and low elo.
Yeah.
The way Set, because even Tim, he actually played a game, he said, on a platinum Smurf, right? And he said it was just like completely different. Like you just walk up and eat people because they just don't tether well and they don't respect your rank because Set, the big thing is that your Q gives movement speed. So the threat of you being able to sprint at someone and rip them in,
people don't respect that.
People don't respect that, you know. And I think that Set is a completely different champion in gold than it is in diamond. It's just a different champion. And so I think, you know, for me, I was learning it in like diamond and master games, so it was hard. It was really, really hard. And so I think Set teaches you matchups. You've got to know your matchups. You've got to know your limits. If you're afraid of, you want like a general game plan that you can plug and play, like an Urgot or like a Mordekaiser or like, you know, one of these other jams, it's not for you. It's complete opposite of that. Every matchup will be different. Some of them you go W start, some E start. Some you're gonna 3-stack tempo reset. Some you're gonna get shoved in. Some you're gonna 2-stack and get messy. It's details, which is not what you would expect when you think of the champ of Set, but that's what it is. And because if you don't get a lead in the early lane, you're in trouble. You've got to get a lead. And what I will say with Set is that there's never a point where it's like, yay, I got this item, it changes everything. It's like, you're kind of just, yeah, sure, Strikebreaker feels nice, but like, there's no definitive, like, I get Rylai's and Mordekaiser, yes, or I get 2 items on Garen, fuck yeah. There's none of that. Like, there's no, or 3 items on Gwen, there's none of that. And the team fighting is it's so easy to get kited. So you've got to be super, super patient, super intentional with your positioning, and it's one of those champs that if you're patient and poised and you know how to use the art properly, you can have insane impact, but you can also be dead useless. So I would just say overall Set has been a very painful experience, but now that I'm on the other side of it, looking back, I think if I had help with matchups, or I knew the matchups, and if I knew what setup to go and I just cut the crap, it would have been so much easier. But I had no idea, so I had to learn from scratch. So, yeah, very tough journey.
You talking about summoner spells